Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks. Today taking a look at the March of the Machines. At least that's what the replay file for this one was called, and I cannot lie, it piqued my interest. So today we're going to be looking at Supreme Straits, probably very familiar with this map, but I will do my due diligence and introduce it. Also, I keep getting comments asking what this game is called, so for anybody who might be watching, who might be new, welcome. This game is called Beyond All Reason. Free to play game, you can go download it right now, and I encourage you to, because it is a real fun one. Anyways, back to normal business. Spawning in the northwestern corner, sorry, the northeastern corner. Our blue team leader, Mingle Mink, a name that I am not familiar with, going to be coming in at 23 true skill and plenty of chevrons by their name. I learned recently what these chevrons finally mean. Someone finally sat down and taught good old TNT what the chevrons actually mean next to your name. Apparently, it's your rank on the global leaderboards. So the higher rank you are, the more and more chevrons you're going to have. I recently achieved the same ranking as the red team leader, spawning in the front line on the southwestern side of the map, Uran. Uran going to be our Armada, I guess, our Armada team leader, Armada in red team leader. Armada should always be in blue. However, if you happen to be on the red team, I'll turn a blind eye to you picking Armada, even though it mismatches the color scheme. Now you're on 29 true skill, definitely up there and counting. Going for these solar panels rather on Supreme Straits is a little concerning to me. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on you, Euron, just to make sure that things go normally here. Also keeping an eye on Ryan Krause, making sure that we have some consistent music here. Trying my very best anyway. As a one-man production, there's only so much I can manage at once, so please bear with me. Missile truck was pumped out first. That's quite an interesting choice from Eliota. Getting missile trucks out on the front line is actually quite nice. They're very, very good against ticks, rovers, rascals, grunts even, somewhat. Yeah, any of that early spam unit that the players are very familiar with getting out of the map. I mean, obviously I would encourage people to get some rovers or whatever light scouts they can across the map so they know what they're going up against. You never know if you're going to be going up against some sort of cheese or if you're going to be going up against some sort of, well, something a little more noble, I guess. A little more encourageable. But either way, it's good to predict that, and also it's good to make sure that you can try and do a little bit of damage on the other side of the map. Any amount of net positive damage is going to be worthwhile here. Not really a fan of pushing with the incisor here. Don't think those are going to get very much done though. I like the missile trucks here because they can fire away at long range. So you can abuse their long rangedness to get a nice little engagement here. That was quite nice. The Janus was baited into firing on the friendly blitz because yeah, they're one of those units that just doesn't really care too much about friendly fire. I'm actually surprised incisors can take a full frontal hit from a Janus. That seems a little bit the math doesn't seem to add up quite so nicely in my mind. So interestingly, everyone except for Lethanarl, we'll go with Lethanarl. Everyone except for Lethanarl has gone for the vehicle bay, which is quite interesting. Does mean that as far as resbots go, we're going to be really, really shy on the front lines. It also means that the red team is going to have a distinct advantage if Lethanarl does get some of those resbots out and hands them over to Uran for his personal use. Yeah, getting those resbots involved with a vehicle composition can definitely be pretty powerful. You can start to get super tremendous value out of a lot of your vehicles. You get value once, you recycle them, you get value twice, you resurrect them, you get value thrice, and so on and so forth. Archon is actually in a little bit of trouble here. If these Januses lock on to that commander, yep, that's a lot of damage. Oh, down to 34%. Miracle D-guns, though. Very, very nicely done. Taking out 4 of the 5 Januses. That commander is not looking so hot. Yeah, man, down to 17% health. Yeah, Uran rather, is looking for the kill. Smells blood in the water. He's trying to get it. Oh, he might. Oh, he does. Very nicely done. Yeah, those Janices, you have to be so careful with them. They really can do a huge amount of damage. Eliota even brings one out on his own, and it wipes away all of those pawns that were brought out here on the front lines. Man, this is a proper frontline engagement. Trades back and forth. Uran moving in to eat up that metal. Very, very nicely done. Uran's commander is pretty far forward. However, what he can always do is just step out into the sea, right? There's basically no harassment there, so that's one option that he has to escape this. Oh, looks like he's going to run away. I would have loved to see him go for the D-gun on that wreckage there. Would have been one way to deny that metal, is to just D-gun it so that it is no longer on the playing field. Something I would encourage everyone to do if they're unconfident that they're going to be able to secure the metal. Happy that he escaped with his commander, though. It is going to leave Eliota pretty alone on the front line. Burnside's the mid-line player, not mid-tier player. Although I guess fairly in the middle, towards the bottom as far as ranking goes. But you know, never discount your low-tier heroes. You never know what they might pull off in the end. Anyway, Burnside's the mid-lane position, or the middle of the map position here, right next to Better Strategy, who I do recognize. I think me and Better Strategy have played a couple games the other day. Anyways, yeah, Burnsides is going to be getting some bots out on the front line, which is the important information that I should probably relay before it's too late. Both seas are going to be contested. Flat E has built a torpedo launcher, and now a coastal torpedo launcher as well. I wonder if we're going to step into the water. Actually, we're starting up a T2 lab over here, so I think Flat E is probably thinking of going for some sort of tech cheese rather than getting his feet wet. Not a terrible idea. You can afford to do that on the sea lane position over here. You can't afford to do it on the beachhead position over here. So it's you're certainly going to be more forced to play a Navy game when you're playing on the beach versus when you're playing in the lane. Another way to look at it is if you're playing in the lane and you lose. Okay, now the music is too loud. There we go. If you're playing in the lane and you lose, you can recover. If you're playing on the beach and you lose, you're going to be in a really, really tough spot. You're going to be very hard pressed to recover. Armed exploiter going up here, an armed metal extractor rather, called an exploiter. Interesting to see. Eliota doing a phenomenal job of pressuring the front lines here. I mean, it's just Eliota's commander. There's also plenty of units from both Archon and Burnsides holding down this other side, but nicely done, applying pressure evenly. I think part of that is Lethanarl didn't push up quite as far as he probably should have. I think if Lethanarl had pushed up to maybe this line right here, would have been a little bit better. Things might have ended up a little bit more even here. But as for the time being, it is 3 middle metal extractors, which do extract quite a lot more metal, to 2. And boy, that was a sentence and a half. I'm realizing now. Do not attempt it home. Oh, a bunch of artillery rings down on those Janices is not where you want them. Missile trucks on both sides trying to be annoying. Missile trucks are an interesting counter to the Janus because they outrange them significantly enough that you can, you can start to chip away at them, right? Very, very slowly. Trying to get a little engagement with the Januses. You have to get those Janus so close in order for them to fire. Once they lock on, though, they are basically fire and forget. A couple of blitzes have been produced here by the purple player Better Strategy, and it looks like he was trying to move them around here. The Janus fire is so thick, though, and half of those blitzes melt away in a single volley. That hurts. That hurts pretty bad. Yeah, all those tanks that you just built up over the last 8 minutes or so, gone down the drain. How's the naval engagement looking? Oh, interesting. So, UNK has got a little bit of a naval thing going on here. Went for a aerial constructor base, went into the air lab here. Hasn't gone for any bombing or anything like that, so just basically getting fighters out as a precaution against bombers or fighters, or maybe a drop of some sort. But now UNK is in the water. He also transported the commander over to this island, captured it, and then started making tidal generators, which is a great move, actually. Tidal generators at 21 power are more efficient than fusion reactors. And so, yeah, I like to see that we're going for those tidal generators. It's one way to eke out a slow but steady economic growth that does not tax your overall economy very heavily, but eventually nets you the same effects as a T2 economy. Very nicely done. At least an early T2 economy, I should say. Gauntlet has been put up here. I was wondering why there were so few units out for Lethanol. Going for those bots, I mean, they're very cheap, but we should certainly see more than the 3 Centurion, but this explains it. A lot of metal has been put into a plasma artillery, and for what it's worth, it's actually in a decent position here. It can fire away at a decent range, trying to dismantle a lot of this army positioning here on the middle of the map. Tremendously larger army here for the blue team than the red team. Just tons more units overall. You can see 6,500 metal in total is amassed here versus a 5,700 metal for the red team. But there's more static defenses in place here for the red as well. So I guess if we include the gauntlet and the heavy laser towers and all that sort of stuff, it will eventually even out. But yeah, that's those static defenses. They're pretty static. They don't move much. Oh, a nice little volley from those Janus tanks who do manage to get in range and take out a couple of those aggravators. Very nicely done right there. Very nicely done. Looks like while I wasn't looking, the sea lane up north has been lost, so it's going to be on Space Drunk in order to get up to something interesting. Got the T2 metal extractors up and running here. Going to be upgrading all of them. I would warn against upgrading these 2 metal extractors, as they can be bombarded relatively easily from the sea with just a destroyer. But certainly want to get this one, as well as that advanced geothermal, which is queued up. Very nicely done. Love to see that. Looks like some naval engagement has taken place down here as well. We've got a constructor turret healing up some of these LSAW that are being pushed by the enemy destroyers, the Corsairs. The green players, destroyers here. Difficult to get a good engagement on these LSAW when they're being healed up like this. You feel like you're doing damage, but eventually it just doesn't matter anymore. Really unfortunate that we lost that one destroyer right here. That is kind of a bummer. The T2 lab has come up though. I'm pretty impressed with the fact that Flatheat has managed to get a T2 lab up and running, as well as a naval lab. That's quite impressive. Those naval labs are very expensive, and the ships that come out of them doubly so. Oh, using the commander to repair here. I really like to see that. Got the static defense as well. Yeah, these LSAW don't have any sort of anti-submarine fire capabilities, so having them just having the commander march forward is actually really nice here. There are some torpedo launchers coming up for Euphrates. Let me know. Let me know down below. Get in the comments. I started a whole world war with the confusion between the French, Russian, and Polish flags. So that was pretty exciting to wake up to this morning. I mean, it's the second I said it, I knew it was going to cause issues, but it's the risk we take, right? It's the risk we take. Anyway, it looks like the front lines have actually been broken here by the red team. I guess a tremendous push from those Janus tanks, as well as probably some T2 artillery here, managed to skirt off a lot of those T1 tanks, and as well as all those rocket bots and stuff too. They probably just evaporated in the rocket fire. Now the Sheldon can continue marching forward here. Oh, Eliota actually in a lot of trouble. Sheldon raining down fire. Cloak's just in the nick of time, moving the commander out of the way. Still taking a little bit of fire, though. It's a dangerous spot to be in. Oh, commander goes down, but he actually moved it out of the way far enough that it didn't blow up the entire facility. Still, I don't think it's going to help all that much, as now there are Centurion walking into the base here. Those T1 heroes. There are Resbots out, and they're trying to eat up all the wreckages that were eventually left behind by the red team's push, the red players' push even, I could say. As Uran has built a forward metal depot in order to store all of the juicy reclaim that he and his friends are eating up off the front lines. Both teams racing to eat up all of these corpses. Delicious corpse starch. Only in death does your duty end, and doubly so is true in Beyond All Reason. Now the Fiends are here, though, and they melt down those T1 medium tanks like it's nothing, burning through them with their flamethrowers. This is a dangerous composition to go up against. The Sheldons raining away in the back lines, with the Fiends in the front for literal fire support. They're pretty badass, aren't they? Slinging flame around like it's casually nothing, just throwing massive gouging bursts of flames. Yeah, they're a pretty epic unit. Now, luckily here, Burnsides has got his own T2 out to play, the Fiends of Legend here to try and stop this push, and I'm really happy to see that. One of the rare counters to the Fiend is the Fiend. It actually trades out pretty evenly because of the fact that they do AoE, as well as the fact that they explode when they die. They end up trading pretty well against themselves. It's one of those. It's a weird dynamic for sure, but it is effective. So. Happy to see those Fiends out. They're also just relatively cheap and inexpensive, and they can get a tremendous amount of value, so it's one of the ways that you can eke out an advantage is just by producing a couple of Fiends and trading them out against a early T1 army. Janus is just rolling through. It's actually a huge waste of metal. Januses are fairly expensive at 240 metal a pop. That is the same as the cost of a single Fiend. It's actually more expensive than the cost of a single Fiend. So you need to get a huge amount of value out of it. I was wondering why this gauntlet was friendly firing over here, and it's just dumb firing into a random spot on the map. That has caught many a player, myself included, in a lot of trouble as you suddenly realize that you've blown up half your army, especially with those T2 armies that can be those T2 static defenses like rattlesnakes. If you do that on accident, you will find yourself in a tricky position. Here's something that I want to encourage people to do a little more often. Deconstruct, there's the word, Jesus, I need to go have another cup of coffee. I'm not waking up properly. Deconstruct your early defenses. Deconstruct your T1s or T2s. Your heavy laser towers, your gauntlets. Look at this, 2,130 metal that you've got tied up in T1 defenses that currently are just sitting idly by. And now that we're in the T2 stage, those defenses aren't really going to cut it. You're going to be way better off just going for some sort of a proper T2 lab with the T2 economy here. T2 constructor is even handed out here. Or it might have actually been produced here by Lithanarl, but going for a fusion before the advanced metal extractors. Lithanarl might be a bit new around here. Just in case anybody is in the same shoes as Lithanarl, always go for your metal extractors first. They're the most efficient way to get into a T2 economy. Is just getting those metal extractors. There we go. Starting them up nice and quick. Very good to see. It's it's by far the most efficient way to get into a T2 economy properly. And I'm happy to see it here. Happy to see that Lithanarl is going to be going for that first. Lithanarl. It's an interesting name. I wonder where that comes from. Someone can surely give me a breakdown. Using the platypus here to break out of this confinement is quite nice. The platypus are a hover bot, I guess. They're kind of a weird categorization. They don't come out of the hover lab, but they do float across the water surface. Nice little snipe over here. Looks like a couple of gunship did take out the advanced geothermal. These fighters were slacking on the job. Now there's a bunch of tumbleweeds rolling out. Looks like Space Drunk has got a plan here. Yeah, went for a bunch of T2 labs, and the tumbleweeds are on the roll. I am so surprised with the rise of the tumbleweed recently. It's been one showing after another of just how effective those little roly-poly bastards can actually be. I find it hilarious. So Flatty is just biding time here, just basically building up time to get a composition up and rolling. We have these T2 metal extractors coming up here. I don't mind these forward ones being taken in this position, because Flat E is holding on in the Navy, making sure that there's no push happening here. Meanwhile, I think Euphrates could bother to be a little bit more aggressive. I don't see the reasoning behind keeping all these units statically defending here. We should definitely be getting a couple of destroyers out to harass down these torpedo launchers from a long distance and trying to force Flat E out of the water. If there's one thing you want to deny at all costs when you're playing on the beachhead, it's any sort of footing in the sea. Yep, destroyer counts are building. With that T2 economy, you can start building destroyers pretty easily here. And it's actually just an energy stall above all else that is causing the shortage. I guess it's an energy stall and a build power stall here, as a lot of platypus are rolling out of this lab in the backline. Speaking of backlines, why don't we check in on both the backlines here? It looks like Vector has gone for a bit of economy and is now stepping into a T1 spam. Looks like that is the preferred vector of attack for Vector here. Vector, an arrow meaning both strength and direction. Something, something. Despicable me. Advanced fusion reactors coming up here for Nano as well, who is the air player, going into some of those torpedo bombers. Good to see as well. That's a great way to support the navies. Ooh, here come the tumbleweeds though. They're so devilishly effective. Like, what are you gonna do? Shoot me down? There's only 400 more where that came from. Oh, and yeah, all of them are underneath your base, by the way. They've now dismantled essentially all of the defenses here from Mingelmink, who is trying to figure out a way to deal with this. There's not very many great options, really. Torpedo bombers are decent. At the very least, they're homing torpedoes. Well, home. They lock onto their targets, so they'll try their very best. It looks like they're even struggling here, though. Oh, and the fighters sweep in to catch him. It was almost a bait. They pulled the torpedo bombers out and then used the fighters to jump on top of them here. Lovely work. A little bit of a fighter trade going on. As more and more of them roll forward. Tumbleweeds, I mean, roll forward. Every wave drops a little bit more static defense. Chipping away at the static defense until nothing remains here. Mingelmink is now completely out of the water, by the way. There is no production facilities in the water. He's going into an advanced fusion reactor. He's got the T2 on land. Not interested in contesting the Navy at all, and so it's pretty interesting to see this engagement of non-commitment between Space Trunk and Mingelmink here. Torpedo bomber is going to come out to try and shut down a little bit of the naval supporting forces here from Euphrates, and it's definitely going to be worthwhile. Yeah, those torpedo bombers can get really tremendous value, especially when there's no anti-air here, which there is not. Euphrates did not bother going into T2, which is a bit interesting. I would have expected either a T2 transition on land or in the sea. At this point, I would have expected it in the sea. I mean, there's so much metal just contested here. You've got 4 metal extractors under the sea, as well as the 4 on land. So I'd love to see a T2 constructor handed out here. Something somebody brought up in a comment in one of the videos is if you notice that your Frontline doesn't really have the APM to spare upgrading their mexes, you can go ahead and upgrade them for them. It doesn't really cost you too much in the backline, especially if you're not producing units or anything. I thought that was a fair point. You're always looking to help your team out, right? Especially in the backline. You're essentially the ultimate support position. What a terrible engagement here from Euphrates. Yeah, what an abysmal engagement. Just like that, the entire naval theater has been placed in the palm of Flat E's hand. While there may be a flat Earth, the high seas sure are on a roll today. If you like quippy one-liners like that and more, by the way, feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. Always happy to have new friends joining the Brightworks community here. Wow, gunships ravaging this area. These sabers can do so much work. What an epic unit. The inspiration, by the way, I was informed by the creator, the design lead for those new ships. If you haven't checked out that video, by the way, go give that one a watch, because there's some cool new T2 Navy that's going to be coming out real soon. The design for the drones for the Armada drone carrier is roughly based off of the Saber. It's like a fusion of the Saber as well as the VTOL helicarrier thing, the transport right here. You can see the little thrusters on it. It's very, very cool. I love that it all feels inspired by the same universe, right? Like it all feels canonical, right? Like the Armada. Oh boy, I think I found the March of the Machines. What I was gonna say. Let me finish that thought, and then we'll zoom back into the middle of the map here. But yeah, the idea that Armada is like constantly improving off of base designs, right? Like very iteratively, selectively choosing new designs to go for. What an epic swell in music to represent the encore of bots headed towards the front lines here, as well as the platypus marching their way across here. This is devastating. Platypus get into the back line here. They do jump on top of that lab. They get in between the cracks starting to dismantle everything here. The build power goes down, the energy converters go down, the advanced fusion reactor goes down, and I think the regular fusions will not be long to follow here. Impulse bombers to deal with the platypus. Those platypus have an anti-air attack, so they will shred those down pretty quickly. There go all those fusion reactors, and the platypus are not done marching yet. They're a walking man, and they just can't lose. Just can't lose when he's got his walking shoes. Mauser trying to repel these forces, but there's just too many of them. Sir, we're being pushed back. There's too many. The pawn count is tremendous as it just continues to march forward across the straits here. Let's look at the rally here. Yep, very nicely done. It's one thing a lot of people tend to get very wrong about rallying across the straits is you want to make sure that when you're rallying, you're spreading the units out, right? You want to cover surface area with your units rather than force them through a certain area. The units are not strong enough. The pawns, the grunts are not strong enough to break through an area. You're using them to distribute fire, distribute pain over a wide surface area. Which is exactly what just happened, as now the front line had to deal with a huge influx of pawns all of a sudden out of nowhere. And they just keep marching. Wow. Well, I'll be damned. I'm not a huge fan of the T1 spam because it tends to lag out the games, but if it's just one player using it strategically to break a front line, I guess it's to be respected. Hound's not the ideal choice here. I definitely love to see welders being brought out. Welders or sprinters. Welders do a much better job against the T1 units like this. Not only for their damage, but also for the fact that they can chain that lightning off of various units. So if you if you force these units into some sort of a conga line, they're eventually going to the lightning is going to bounce off of them, and you'll get way more value out. Advanced fusion reactor goes down right there, and the entire front line for the red team has evaporated under the pawn's weight. This is devastating. Devastating work. What a beautiful collapse right here. The collapse of the Holy Red Roman Empire. Beautiful. There's something beautiful about the carnage. I'm sure that's certainly why more than one of us are here. Certainly one of the reasons why I'm here. One of the most beautiful things about this game are the tremendous explosions and the sheer scale of the armies running forward at full speed, charging. Not a care in the world for their own health. What is your own health in the face of victory? Very nicely done. I believe there's a in the realm of order in the across the planar dimensions in D&D. There's the I forget what they're called, but they're like clockwork people. And they follow like a very strict, orderly sort of formation. But at one point, there's this event where they all roll across the various universes. I don't even remember why exactly, but I remember that they just stampede hundreds upon thousands upon thousands of them. And I have to imagine this is somewhat what it would look like. Just an infinite army of them marching across the battlefield. This is pretty epic. Shit tier eco again. Fairly harsh in the criticism, but I guess it will be the tipping point that convinces the red team to tap in here. Very nicely done. Very strategic use of the T1 spam. I was judgmental and very critical of it at first, but I have to admit it was very, very effective. March of the Machines couldn't have been a more suiting name for this one. Yeah, that's pretty epic. Thanks a ton for watching. Oh wow, you can see the eco scaling there, just way up and away by Vector here. I have a feeling that Vector may be more familiar with this game than his 11 true skill would imply. Thanks a ton for watching. If you enjoyed this one, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like down below. It really helps these videos soar into the sky, higher than even the eco here of Vector. And more than anything, it just reaffirms for me that people are still appreciating this stuff, and I always love to hear from you guys, especially in the comment section down below. So thanks a ton for watching, and I will see you in the next video.